Hi, it's Jerry Roberts back with another
16.
edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Plague Year. It is Friday, October 16th, 2.5 weeks till the election, but the big election has already been held, and that is the best of election in the Santa Barbara Independent. I'm joined this morning by Delaney Smith of the Santa Barbara Independent, Josh Molina from Newshawk, and the man of the hour, Nick Welsh, who after 38 years has finally been voted best columnist in Santa Barbara, beating out Starshine Rochelle for the first time ever. Nick, the key question is everybody's mind as we spray champagne with goggles on, looking like LeBron. Did you get more or fewer votes than Oscar did for getting elected to the 3rd district?
I think I won. Alejandro actually won by 8 votes, and Alejandro Gutierrez won by 8 votes. And the first district, I think I got all of 8 votes.
All right.
Maybe.
Well,
I have no idea.
All kidding aside, we all sincerely congratulate you. At least I do. I don't know about these other two. They can speak for themselves. But it's long overdue, and it was nice of Starshine to take a dive on your behalf. So you
took a dive. I mean, before Starshine, it was Jerry, Bonnie Branningham, and just can't win to lose in my own backyard.
All right, let's talk about the news. So COVID, we've got fewer cases than just about any time since the pandemic started. Things are looking good, although Delaney, your colleague, Jean Yamamura, has an interview with one of the docs at Cottage and Sansom who says there's a spike en route, but a whole bunch of new data, which actually I've begun pronouncing data. I try to change it every 3 months. And it shows that people in your cohort are most at risk for the disease. Is that true?
Yeah, they broke it down. Well, not most at risk. That's kind of a weird way of putting it. And I don't know if it exactly translates that way. But of all of the counties, 8,000 whatever so cases so far, the majority of them have been people between the ages of 20 and 29. They broke it down by decades. And then after that, it was between 30 and 39. So it's right in this younger to middle-aged working class age group. That's the class that has by far the most cases. But that still flip-flops because when you're looking at deaths specifically, not just how many people have gotten it, over 66% of the deaths are people over the age of 70. So it does.
That's good news. That's good news for everyone.
It's not good news, but it's notable, very notable.
So basically, people who have to work and people who are generally irresponsible with their social lives are those who are getting it most. But there's also very, very dramatic racial and ethnic divides on it. Could you talk about those a little?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing here with our Latino community is what we're seeing across the entire country, which is that they're getting COVID and they're dying from COVID at disproportionately higher rates than their white counterparts. That's just basically it. And it obviously there's so many different factors that feed into that that I couldn't even get all into it today, but this kind of goes to that equity metric that I was talking about last week with you, which is that now the state is requiring that we're looking at those areas that have the highest amount of cases, which tend to be areas that are Latino communities. And we have to make sure that their amount of cases is lower than a certain bar. And I don't exactly remember what the bar is, but they have to be below that. And it's just focus on that group because they do need the most help. So the whole rest of this county can't keep moving forward if we don't also bring up the most disadvantaged communities who are getting it the most.
And on the natural, you would think farm workers plus large multiple families.
Yes. Oh, you know what? That's really, really, really important to state as well, is that they also broke it down by occupations. And the number one occupation that gets COVID is farm workers.
All right, but we're getting close to the orange. Is that correct?
We are, yes. As a whole, as a county as a whole, we are actually trending in the right direction. And we are very close to orange. If all goes well, we should be there next week. But like you referenced, Jean Yamamura's interview, it is about that we are we're predicting that there's going to be a spike again because of flu season and because of the winter. And that's not because the air is cold. That's because people are all going to start going indoors now to congregate rather than congregating outside. And that compounded with the flu at the same time is naturally kind of expect a spike.
All right. Josh, you had a piece earlier in the week that said the Santa Barbara School Board was looking at perhaps bringing elementary kids back to school before January, but in the end, I guess they decided to stay with distance learning until the second semester or the next semester. Sort that out, would you?
Well, Santa Barbara Unified is not prepared to return to in-class learning because they have too many kids and too many unanswered questions as to how it would work on the ground. They need to hire new staff, and they also need to figure out exactly how the hybrid would work. And they've not communicated to parents how it would work. You know, students have gotten used to, especially in elementary, their teachers. And so they're Zooming with their teachers, and under this hybrid plan, that would go away. So they might actually, in some cases, have less time with their teacher. And so that's a factor. And so it isn't as simple as a lot of the people who want kids to return to school have made it out to be. It's not as though it's like, instead of looking at the camera and talking to your teacher, now you're going to do it in real life. That's not how the hybrid plan is going to work. And they need to do a better job of communicating that. The bigger issue, though, is that they just don't have enough staffing to do this yet. So they're going to take some time. They're going to communicate a plan. They're going to play it out so that they can, going to model it so that they can actually see how it would work. And they've got to hire custodians. They've got to hire playground supervisors. They've got to hire substitute teachers. There's not a lot of pool right now for this, apparently. And I think the critics would say, why didn't you do this before? This isn't new. We knew that we were going to be in this situation for a while. So critics would say, why are you all of a sudden saying we need to wait till January? Why was this not happening sooner? So, I mean, I think that's the $1 million question, is could they have been more prepared
like
to open?
Brian Campbell and Elrod and people on that side of the school board race?
Well, I mean, their perspectives are political, and it's just them trying to be critical of everything the school district does. But I mean, parents have some legitimate questions about that, and I think it's a good question. I also think the challenge, though, is that we've waited so long, and so here we are toward the end of October, and then we're going to be in November, and then we're going to have Thanksgiving, and then the things that Delaney talked about, with the season changing and people being indoors more. So does it really make sense to open up in this experimental model 3 weeks before the end of the semester anyway? So I think that is one of the challenges.
Plus the teachers, Jerry. I mean, when they surveyed the teachers and the results were overwhelming. Like even the staffing issue aside, the actual teachers that we do have are essentially flat out refusing to teach in person, and it's like 80 something% of them answer the survey that way. It's just right. No teachers want to come back. I mean, where are we going to get teachers from?
Yeah, and the teachers union has been driving it pretty much anyway. But all right, let's talk about the school board race. And we see these extraordinary numbers across the country about early ballots being returned, early voting, and we're seeing the same thing in the Santa Barbara Unified School District. The votes from within there, I think something like 25 to 30%. Everybody got a ballot, and 30% of everybody has returned it. This is not just registered voters. And the big controversy this week was about the Independent Expenditure Committee, and Nick, you and Delaney both managed to write about that. It was such a big story. First of all, Delaney, who's behind the Independent Expenditure Committee, and who are they benefiting? And then Nick, can you talk a little bit about some of the personalities in there, like Jim Cannell and others?
Yeah. So the actual group that kind of formed this PAC is the same crowd that was backing Angel Martinez in 2017 when he was unsuccessfully ran for mayor. It was the
pro-business coalition. Basically.
Right, exactly. And so those guys were the ones who kind of started it. And there's been a lot of talk that fair education is behind it. And yes, there are several fair education members who have given money. There's overlap, but there is no official tie there. But who it really benefits, they endorsed in the education races, they endorsed in 2 different city college races, and then as well as the Santa Barbara Unified, and they're backing all of the mostly conservative candidates.
And
they say that
in the county board, Lou Siegel.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Thank you. I knew I was forgetting one. And again, conservative. And so they're backing all conservative candidates. They say that they are nonpartisan. Their whole big thing is literacy reform. But kind of behind that a little bit is this conservatives are benefiting.
Well, and conservative, I think, on issues like sex education and
Ethnic studies.
Political race study theory and ethnic studies. And so, Nick, what was your takeaway? You had a very entertaining column about Elrod and Brian Campbell deciding to pick a fight with Starshine, which who finished second, by the way, in the column.
I was trying to be nice. I mean, it is sort of a hodgepodge. I mean, when you look at the donor list, it's sort of it started off in the funk zone with some of the funk zone entrepreneurs who were backing Angel 4 years ago, but a lot of them are just sort of mainstream business people, like Jim Cannell, he gave 10 grand, Maury Jerkowitz, a major philanthropist and real estate guy here in town, he gave 5, Richard Birdie gave 2,500. And you know, what we're seeing at the school board levels, and not just at Unified, but throughout different school districts, city, college, and the county, is a whole sort of cultural, hot potato issues like implicit bias, systematic racism, sex education, and we're seeing pushback from group of different people, and this organization is definitely pushing candidates who express that pushback. And their theme is literacy. They're not interested in what they consider divisive racial politics. They want everybody to. If we just read, we all can read, we're not going to have to deal with the divisive racial politics. But the problem is, if you actually start reading the history at that point, what you find out is that in central and fundamental to American history is racism. So it's a tricky one, and it's a hot button issue for everybody. And the impact is the T at the end of impact stands for transparency. And I would say that the way that the group announced who they are and where the money was going, etc., was anything but transparent. And then I picked a little bit on Brian Campbell because A, he's easy to, and B, because he deserves it. And Brian Campbell, when he ran for the city council last time, was the hothead who was complaining about the homelessness taking over the Mesa, which was a surprise to everybody who lives on the Mesa. And he didn't really do a very good job filing out his campaign material. It was very cursory at best, let's just say. And this time he's even less. I mean, he told Delaney, I don't have any. Meanwhile, it seems like thousands, if not millions, of yard signs are popping up all over town with his name, just magically. And so
after I questioned him on it a little bit, he said, well, I'm talking to the FPPC on Monday. And I thought, well, you're actually supposed to connect with the FPPC before you start running. And Josh, people who follow politics might look at this and say, what's a big deal? So there's $50,000 in there backing, 7, 8 candidates, it's not that much money. But this is now the second time this year that we've seen a controversy about these, sort of, maybe dark money is too strong a thing, but it's just something that I don't think Santa Barbara politics is used to, these kind of independent expenditure behind the scenes, who's giving the money? Why do I have to, jump through hoops to find this out? Can you, how do you feel these kinds of things play with the sensibility of Santa Barbarans who are all for transparency and good government and that kind of stuff?
Well, Jerry, I knew you'd figure out a way to insert DOS into this controversy by referring to
You
the
mentioned
supervisor's rate
I didn't mention
and the mysterious expenditure that he did not know about. I think there's $1 million to be. I think there's $1 million to be made if there were a smart, conservative political consultant who wanted to actually do business in this town, because it's quite comical and quite laughable to see how conservatives try to campaign. It's embarrassing. Again, this is not a judgment on conservatism in itself. As I've said before, I think these boards should have balance, but the idea that you're going to win a seat on the board by going negative and by having these shell groups that are going to campaign on your behalf, it just doesn't work in Santa Barbara. I mean, Kate Ford and Rose Munoz got elected to the school board without, a single negative piece on anybody. And they got elected. Rose got elected because she was deeply known in the community and she had lots of connections. And she didn't run the most impressive campaign, but she had relationships. And Kate, the same thing. And she had this incredibly, she has this great presence about her. So people remember her and they vote for her. That's what people.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
That's what people want in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara's smart. They're educated. They care. They have strong perspectives. And they want somebody who they feel is being honest with them. And I think that's the problem with two conservative candidates. What?
What'd you
That's
say?
the problem with two conservative candidates on the school board.
What'd you say, Nick?
I was going to say, it used to be, the conservative, who used to be conservative has changed. It used to be you would have people like Dan Secord or Randy Rouse or, Bruce Firestone, or even Del Francisco. The fringiness of who runs as a conservative now is like at 11, whereas before it used to be at a 7. The sort of moderate mainstream conservative has definitely shifted over to the right. And, you're right. If there was somebody here who could run like a credible conservative campaign and actually turn in their paperwork on time, that would be a major change.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk.
I think the other thing, sorry, Jared, but the other thing is, Delaney was super proactive in interviewing all the school board candidates. Like, she made that happen, and that was impressive. One of the things that I've noticed with these candidates is they want to do cookie cutter journalism and they want to do cookie cutter campaigning. No one's reached out to Nick Welsh, as far as I know, as far as proactively. No one's reached, these conservative candidates that say, I want to get to know the media before I'm about to embark on this campaign. I want to be on good terms. I at least want to be on respectful terms. They don't do that. Instead, what they do is sort of paste this cookie cutter conservative national media talking points and think they're going to get away with that in Santa Barbara. You can't do that. You can't go after Starshine. You can't go after Nick. You can't go after these institutional people are well respected in the community and expect to not have repercussions. So I think it's a sign, it's a little thing, but it's a sign that these people who want to go on the school board, you need to know your stuff. That is important. You need to be knowledgeable. You need to have a mastery of the issues. And you can't just come in here and say literacy. It's like, duh, of course literacy matters.
Well, I would
more
say,
than that. You need solutions.
I would say you can go after Nick and you can go after Starshine, but you need to do your homework and you need to know what you're talking about and what the political landscape looks like. Let's talk about City Hall stuff a little bit. Nick, we had the first of what I expect will be a fair number of long discussions and hearings on inclusionary housing downtown. So what, a majority of the council now wants 15% versus the old 10%, or explain, sort that out, would you?
Okay, so here in a nutshell, sort of, it's one of those everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die situations. We all want housing downtown, but what kind of housing and for whom? And so we have this program called the AUD program, which has actually succeeded in getting developers to build a whole bunch, hundreds of units of new rental properties, where in the past they didn't build any. So it has succeeded, but the problem is affordable to whom and at what prices. And so the inclusionary rallying cry is, well, we need to have 10 or 15% of the units built affordable to people who make households that make 81 to 105,000 bucks a year. So we're not talking corporate.
The missing
Little income, the missing donut hole, right? So on the books now, as the law says, it has to be 10%. But now everybody wants to build downtown. That's like the new sexy thing. We're going to save downtown by having housing. So how do we get a slice of the pie to make it affordable to somebody down there? Downtown has the highest real estate values in the South Coast. So it is a daunting prospect to begin with. There are two proposals on the table. One is Jim Cannell on the 700 block. He has 34 units proposed. One's a guy named Peter Lewis on the 400 block. His is now 78 units. And the council, just to be clear, did not vote to increase inclusionary downtown. It was clear, though, that a majority of them would like to do so at some point, but that's down the road. Just the conversation itself has got Jim Cannell, who is an easily excitable guy and bombards City Hall with many angry emails all the time, bombarded them with another one saying, I'm the hell out of here. I'm taking my ball and going home. Forget it. Now, in City Hall, people are saying Jim Cannell's project didn't pencil out anyway. It wasn't enough units, and it was going to cost too much, and he wants to get mad at us and blame it on us, but it wouldn't have penciled out anyway, so big whack. Peter Lewis is still in the ballgame. So
who's that?
This is Jeannie Amamora's husband.
What is that? Is that like a
It is a apple fritter.
apple fritter? That's what I thought from
Apple fritter Friday.
Let me ask Josh to step in on the inclusionary housing thing. Did you sit through this whole thing, or how many trips to the kitchen did you have to make while they were discussing this issue? I mean, what was your takeaway?
I did sit through the meeting, and I also did make several trips to the refrigerator. So you know me well, Jerry. I think that they were sort of saying that we want to get to 15% downtown inclusionary, but today's not the day to do that. When it comes back, when they start looking at the larger package, they're definitely going to want to push for that. Megan Harmon sort of said that very clearly. And the majority of them want to do that, but
it's
they
going
want to go to
to
the planning commission first.
The issue is going to the planning commission, and what are they? I mean, what's the decision point that they're going to make at the planning commission? Is it a whole series of changes to the AUD, or is it a specific inclusionary housing call?
I think the main thing when it gets to the planning commission is going to be
They're going
inclusionary.
to look at a series of changes.
You're breaking up a little bit, Josh. Now
You could try turning off your video because it'll make your audio
Yeah,
back.
right now, so probably part of it.
All right. So anyway, wait, real quick, what are they?
That's the whole point is the video.
All right, Nick, could you translate what Josh just said? I think he said the whole point is the inclusionary decision. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, they've been tinkering with the AUD already. Like, for example, earlier this year, they said developers it's optional if you want to provide parking. So that creates a whole lot of more buildable space for, livable area. would presumably reduce their costs. But the real question is, in the minds of a lot of council members, is we're giving them all these incentives, gimmies, as Kristen Sneddon said. What are we getting out of it on behalf of the middle income earners here? And not doodly squat is what they're saying. The developers are saying, you guys aren't realistic. If you want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg, you've got the gun to the head with this, and you can just forget about more housing.
Not to mix a metaphor. All right. So, all right, real quick, Delaney, what are you working on? What are we going to see over the next week?
I'm going to take one last stab at really showing the public who all of these candidates are, because there's no other way in COVID times.
Give me all the education,
Education candidates, yeah.
including community college, or Nick, are you still doing community college?
I think I'm AWOL on community college.
I might pick up community college. I really want to give one last shot for the public to really see who they're voting for, because this 2020 election is such a huge deal.
And Josh, I know you and I are going to be questioning Salud Carbajal and Andy Caldwell in the one and only 24th Congressional District debate on KYT Saturday. What else are you working on?
I'm trying to do some, well, what am I working on? It's hard to answer that, but obviously the big stories right now are school board and reopening school district. Goleta School District's going to have a meeting next. They've already said they're going to go to Orange. I think there's lots of stories related to the reopening.
Is Goleta going to go back before January, do you think?
No.
Well, they've tied it to the Orange reopening. So whenever that happens, they've said that's the earliest we're going to go back.
That would be next
mean
week,
they're going to go back.
That would be next week. I
That
can't imagine that next week they're going to say they're reopening. So I'd say that they're going to follow Santa Barbara.
All right. You
That's
heard
my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is they've already voted that they're going to go back when it's Orange. That would be the earliest. But their meeting's not till Wednesday. We'll find out Tuesday if they go to Orange. And so that Wednesday meeting will be significant.
All right. And you have a really, really superb podcast out there this week. I highly recommend everyone go to, what's the website for the podcast again? I mean, the URL. Josh.
Santa Barbara Talks with Josh
Santa
Molina.
Barbara Talks. SantaBarbaraTalks.com.
All right.
And Jerry, hot on the heels of your interview, I have Caroline Hara, who's a big parent activist, who's going to be coming up next week.
All right. Plenty of free parking. Once again, congratulations to Nick Welsh, the outstanding columnist, #1 columnist, best of columnist.
There we go, finally. I can die happy.
Enjoy it while you can, pal, because next year Starshine's coming at you with the social media hordes. Thanks to Delaney Smith, Josh Molina, Nick Welsh. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers with Jerry Roberts. Stay safe.